Did you know that the sun isn't always as serene as it seems? While most of the time it shines down on us without causing any trouble, now and then, it has a trick up its sleeve. A trick that could spell trouble for us all. Imagine a storm so powerful that it could plunge entire cities into darkness and silence satellites that we rely on for communication. Sounds like something out of a science fiction movie, right? But here's the twist. It's not fiction at all. Scientists are raising the alarm about these super strong solar storms, warning that we might be in for a rocky ride shortly. So, why is there a growing sense of concern? Let's find out. The sun is an active and ever-moving celestial object that consistently releases a flow of solar energy toward Earth. Amidst this vibrant exhibition, there are moments of significant importance. Are you familiar with the concept of solar storms? A phenomenon that merits thoughtful consideration? Well, it might come as a surprise to you that our planet occasionally experiences the effects of solar storms, even though they go unnoticed due to their imperceptible nature. These disruptions evade our visual and auditory detection. A solar storm refers to the effects experienced on Earth due to certain events taking place on the sun. Despite our perception of the sun as a constant source of unending light, the truth is quite different. The sun is an incredibly expansive sphere comprised of flowing gases in constant motion. Solar storms originate from the sun's release of immense bursts of energy, manifesting as solar flares and coronal mass ejections. These notable incidents propel streams of electric charges and magnetic fields toward Earth, traveling at speeds exceeding 3 million miles per hour. When a solar storm hits the Earth, it often creates a stunning display known as the Northern Lights, visible in areas close to the Arctic Circle. Additionally, solar storms can disrupt satellites and various electronic communications. The origin of solar storms can be traced back to a massive explosion on the sun. These powerful events are called solar flares and can be as strong as billions of nuclear explosions. Solar flares usually come with the release of large streams of charged plasma that travel at speeds of millions of miles per hour. These streams are called coronal mass ejections, CMEs. When CMEs reach Earth, they can cause geomagnetic storms that disrupt satellites and power grids. For instance, let's consider February 2011 when a powerful solar flare triggered a coronal mass ejection, CME, that disrupted radio communications throughout China. Interestingly, experts suggest that a notable solar storm could result in economic harm, surpassing that of the most severe hurricanes by more than 20 times. Researchers who delve into solar storms have noticed a pattern. The frequency of solar flares tends to follow an 11-year solar cycle. During periods of increased activity, several solar storms might arise daily, while during quieter times, there might be less than one solar storm per week. Scientists predict that the sun's ongoing cycle of activity will reach its zenith with a peak of solar storms around the year 2024. On a typical day, the sun's powerful solar energy doesn't cause any harm as it's deflected away. However, sometimes the sun unleashes an extremely strong storm that could break through Earth's protective magnetic barrier. If such a storm were to happen tomorrow, it could create a situation where technology faces major disruptions. This disruption might impair economies and jeopardize the well-being and livelihoods of people worldwide, as NASA explains. Thankfully, these storms don't happen often. But as our sun becomes more active in anticipation of 20 years of increased activity, the chances of such a storm reaching Earth in the coming years are higher. This circumstance leaves us more vulnerable and open to potential problems than we have been before. But why? Well, there are 3 distinct solar phenomena capable of releasing high-speed particles that interfere with Earth's magnetic fields: solar flares, coronal holes, and coronal mass ejections, CMEs. These are enormous explosions occurring on the sun. All of this combined activity creates a situation where rare events, like a once-in-a-century occurrence, have a higher chance of happening. If these collide with Earth with enough force, they have the potential to strip away the ionized layer around our planet that serves as protection against the most severe space weather. This could then create an avenue for an influx of additional charged particles. We're talking a 1-in-100-year event, explained Matthew Owens, a space physics professor at the University of Reading. This strong magnetic storm can happen unexpectedly, but it's more likely to occur during a period of high solar activity. This high activity usually comes around every 11 years, when the sun's magnetic field lines become more twisted and tangled. The much stronger events don't happen every cycle, explained Daniel Verscharen, an associate professor of space and climate physics at University College London. But during a maximum of a strong cycle like the one that is coming, it's more likely to get some of those events that cause power outages here on Earth, he added. The most powerful geomagnetic storms that have been documented happened before the time when the internet was widely used, and the large groups of satellites that currently circle Earth existed. Our reliance on today's modern systems makes us more prone to their possible breakdown. The Carrington event of 1859 is seen as a measure of the most forceful solar storm ever recorded. However, due to the limited systems in place during that time, its impact was relatively limited. Still, its effects were notable. Operators of telegraphs experienced electric shocks from their equipment, and fires ignited at telegraph stations as the storm-induced currents surged through the wires. In another example, a significant storm occurred in 1989. Although it wasn't as strong, its disruption was more noticeable. By then, we had become more reliant on power grids and worldwide communication networks. The power surge led to a widespread blackout in Quebec, lasting 12 hours and causing shortwave radio to go silent. There were even worries among Canadians that the Soviet Union might be deliberately interfering with radio signals heading into Russia, a misconception that could have had serious consequences during the Cold War. Fortunately, these situations didn't escalate further. However, they might have made us feel overly secure. Since the 1990s, our dependence on communication systems, satellites, power grids, and other vital infrastructure has greatly increased. If a similar storm were to occur today, experts predict that the world could face extensive power failures, satellites falling from their orbits, and vital communication networks going offline, according to NASA. Although this cycle is predicted to be relatively moderate, it has already displayed more activity than its preceding counterpart. Consequently, there's potential for the sun to become more active than it has been over the past 2 decades. Another factor, according to Verscharen, the space professor, involves the sun's magnetic fields pointing southwards. This orientation increases the likelihood that the charged particles emitted by the sun will possess a magnetic charge that opposes Earth's magnetic field. As a result, these particles could have a better chance of breaching Earth's protective barriers. According to experts, a storm doesn't necessarily need to reach the magnitude of the Carrington event to yield significant repercussions. Even Elon Musk's SpaceX encountered challenges, losing 40 Starlink satellites due to a solar storm that expanded the atmosphere. This expansion heightened atmospheric drag, resulting in the satellites burning up before they could be utilized. All these outcomes can carry significant financial ramifications, as highlighted by Verscharen. The ongoing cycle is anticipated to reach its peak around 2025. However, the danger won't recede entirely at that point, as geomagnetic storms are more likely to occur as the solar activity subsides from its peak, according to Verscharen. Until then, countries located at higher latitudes such as the US, Canada, Sweden, and the UK should exercise heightened caution. The vulnerability to solar weather increases with a country's latitude, as emphasized by Verscharen. Fortunately, there exist methods to alleviate the most severe impacts of these storms. With adequate advance notice, operators can implement measures to safeguard infrastructure from the worst effects of solar storms. This might involve strategic power grid shutdowns, altering flight paths for aircraft, or repositioning satellites, for instance. Scientists like Verscharen and Owens are now in a race to decipher the factors that amplify the strength of solar events. This knowledge is crucial for enhancing our advanced warning systems. The European Space Agency is also preparing to launch the Vigil satellite, designed to orbit behind the sun. This position will enable it to detect potentially hazardous sunspots and coronal holes days before they become visible from Earth's vantage point. With a combination of better prediction, a better understanding of space weather, and paying more attention by especially the private sector that is now growing into the space, those things should be avoidable, said Verscharen. So, what do you think about this situation? Do you think we will make it? Let us know in the comments. We would love to hear them. With that said, thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more.